Welcome to today's video, where we dive deep into an emotionally charged story that explores the fragile bonds of love, trust, and the devastating impact of betrayal. Meet Claire Sullivan, a devoted wife and mother whose seemingly perfect life begins to crumble under the weight of distance, secrets, and forbidden connections. As tensions rise and heartbreak unfolds, the choices Claire and those around her make will leave you questioning where the lines between right and wrong truly lie. Buckle up, because this is a roller coaster of emotions you won't want to miss. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe as we unravel this gripping tale of infidelity, guilt, and redemption. The world is buzzing with social media hashtags, viral videos, and that catchy pop hit everyone pretends to hate but secretly loves. But our story isn't about trends or memes. It begins in the quiet suburban neighborhood of Ashwood Heights, a picturesque place with tree-lined streets, white picket fences, and neighbors who bake pies for each other, or at least pretend to. Here we meet Claire Sullivan, a 37-year-old elementary school teacher whose life seems straight out of a feel-good family drama. Claire has warm, hazel eyes and an inviting smile, the kind of person who leaves handwritten notes for her students just to brighten their day. She's married to Daniel, a ruggedly handsome architect with salt and pepper hair that makes him look like he stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. Together, they have 2 children, Emily, a sharp and witty 12-year-old, and Jake, an energetic 8-year-old with a passion for soccer, and let's be honest, anything messy. On the surface, Claire and Daniel's life is the definition of charm couple goals. Their home, a charming craftsman-style house at the end of Willow Lane, is always filled with the laughter of kids and the aroma of Claire's famous chocolate chip cookies. From PTA meetings to backyard barbecues, the Sullivans are the family everyone admires, but as we know, appearances can be deceiving. Let's pause here for a second. Have you ever noticed how the most seemingly perfect lives often have cracks hidden just beneath the surface? That's where things get interesting. It all begins on an ordinary Wednesday morning. Claire is sipping her coffee, scrolling through her lesson plans, while Daniel is rushing to leave for work. Don't forget Emily's recital on Friday, Claire reminds him as she packs the kids' lunches. Daniel nods absent-mindedly, fumbling with his car keys. Lately, he's been distant, caught up in a high-stakes project at work. Claire tells herself it's just the stress. After all, Daniel has always been the type to throw himself into his job when deadlines loom. As Daniel leaves, Claire feels a faint pang of loneliness. It's a feeling she's been trying to ignore for months. Their once passionate relationship has settled into a routine, predictable, comfortable, and, if she's honest, a little uninspiring. She shrugs it off, focusing on her day ahead. At school, Claire finds solace in her work. Her students adore her, and she's known for going the extra mile to make learning fun. But even her fulfilling career can't completely distract her from the growing distance between her and Daniel. Later that week, during Emily's piano recital, the tension becomes more palpable. Claire arrives early, saving a seat for Daniel, but as the minutes tick by, her phone buzzes with a text. "Stuck at work, I'll try to make it." Claire forces a smile, waving off Emily's disappointed glance with a reassuring nod. Deep down, though, the absence stings. That night, the two barely exchange words. Claire tries to bring up how she's feeling, but Daniel brushes it off. "It's just work, Claire. Things will calm down soon," he says, his eyes glued to his laptop. Claire nods, biting her tongue. It's easier than arguing. Now here's where the story starts to shift. What happens when someone else steps into the picture? Someone who notices the cracks you're trying so hard to hide. Enter Ethan Morgan. Ethan is the new soccer coach for Jake's team, a charismatic 40-year-old with a broad smile and a natural charm that instantly wins over the kids, and admittedly, some of the mums on the sidelines. He's a single dad, having moved to Ashwood Heights after a messy divorce. While most people know him as Coach Ethan, he's also a talented photographer with a knack for capturing moments that feel alive. Claire first meets Ethan during Jake's practice. She's sitting on the bleachers, distractedly scrolling through her phone, when Jake calls out, "Mom, come meet Coach Ethan." She looks up and sees him, tall, with an easygoing confidence that makes her feel slightly self-conscious as she brushes crumbs off her sweater. "Hi, Claire," he says, offering a handshake. "Jake's told me all about your famous cookies. I'm Ethan." Claire laughs, feeling a warmth she hasn't felt in a while. "Nice to meet you. And yes, Jake's been trying to convince me to bake some for the team." Careful, Ethan grins. Bribing the coach with cookies might become a thing. Over the next few weeks, Claire and Ethan's paths cross more frequently. At first, it's purely coincidental, pickup games, team meetings, but soon their conversations grow longer. They talk about parenting challenges, the best pizza places in town, and their shared love of old classic movies. Claire finds herself looking forward to these chats more than she'd like to admit. One rainy afternoon, after a particularly chaotic soccer practice, Ethan approaches Claire in the parking lot. "Hey," he says, holding an umbrella over both of them. "Thanks for staying late to help with the kids. I know it's not easy balancing everything." Claire shrugs, but the sincerity in his voice catches her off guard. "It's nothing, really. You're the one coaching in this weather." They both laugh, and for a moment, Claire forgets about the storm brewing in her own marriage. But as the weeks go by, Claire starts to notice the subtle changes in her routine. She spends a little extra time on her appearance before soccer practice. She catches herself replaying snippets of her conversations with Ethan. It's harmless, she tells herself, just a friendly connection, until one evening, when Ethan sends her a text. "All right, folks, you know how this goes. A seemingly innocent message that opens the door to something neither of them is quite ready for. What do you think happens next? Stay tuned as we uncover the next chapter of Claire's journey." Welcome back. If you're just joining us, make sure to rewind and catch the beginning of Claire's story, because things are about to heat up. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. When we left off, Claire Sullivan had found herself drawn to Ethan Morgan, the charismatic soccer coach with a warm smile and a knack for making her feel seen, something she hadn't felt in her own marriage for a long time. But what started as harmless conversations is slowly beginning to feel like something more. It all starts with a text message. It's late on a Wednesday evening, and Claire is sitting on the couch, grading papers while the kids are asleep upstairs. Daniel, as usual, is glued to his laptop in the office. Her phone buzzes, and she glances at the screen. "Ethan. Hey, thanks again for helping out today, you're a lifesaver." Claire smiles faintly and replies, "No problem. The kids were great." Moments later, another buzz. "Ethan. Still, I owe you. Maybe I can return the favor sometime coffee after practice?" Claire hesitates, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She knows this isn't just about coffee, or maybe it is, she tells herself. She types back, "Sure, that sounds nice." "Okay." Pause. "Now, I know what you're thinking. A friendly coffee date. No big deal, right?" But as we all know, the line between harmless and dangerous gets blurry when emotions are involved. Let's see where this goes. The next afternoon, Claire finds herself unusually nervous. She tells Daniel she'll be staying late after practice to discuss some team logistics with the other parents, a half-truth at best. When she arrives at the cafe, Ethan is already there, sitting by the window with 2 steaming cups of coffee. "Hey," he says, standing as she approaches. "I wasn't sure how you take it, so I guessed black with a little sugar?" "Perfect," Claire replies, smiling. She sits across from him, the awkwardness melting away as they start talking. What begins as small talk soon deepens into conversations about their pasts, their dreams, and the challenges of parenting. "I envy how involved you are with your kids," Ethan says, his gaze warm and genuine. "It's not easy being a single dad most days. I feel like I'm winging it." "You're doing a great job," Claire assures him. "Jake adores you, and from what I've seen, you're a natural." Ethan chuckles, his smile tinged with sadness. "Thanks, I just wish I'd had that with my ex. Things were so broken for so long, I forgot what a real partnership felt like." Claire nods, her throat tightening. "I know what you mean." From that day forward, their connection deepens. Claire and Ethan's texts become more frequent, their conversations more intimate. At first, Claire justifies it as harmless. After all, everyone needs someone to talk to, but deep down, she knows she's walking a fine line. At home, the distance between her and Daniel continues to grow. He's more absorbed in work than ever, leaving Claire to shoulder the emotional weight of their household. She tries to bring up her feelings one evening, but Daniel brushes her off with a tired sigh. "Claire, can we not do this right now? I'm exhausted." She retreats to the bedroom, staring at her phone. Another message from Ethan lights up the screen. "Ethan, Thinking about our talk today, you're amazing, Claire. Don't forget that. Her heart skips a beat. For the first time in years, someone is making her feel special. This is where the tension really starts to build. Claire is caught between the life she's built with Daniel and the connection she's finding with Ethan. But as we know, these things rarely stay hidden for long. One evening after practice, Claire offers Ethan a ride home when his car won't start. It's pouring rain, the kind that makes the windshield wipers work overtime. As they pull into his driveway, the storm rages around them, thunder rumbling in the distance. "Thanks for this," Ethan says, his voice soft. "I owe you one," Claire smiles. "I think we're even now." There's a pause, heavy with unspoken words. Ethan looks at her, his expression vulnerable. "Claire, I know this probably isn't the right time to say this, but..." She cuts him off, shaking her head. "Ethan, don't." But he doesn't stop. "You deserve more, someone who sees you, who listens, who makes you feel like you're enough." Claire's breath catches. For a moment she considers leaving, but something keeps her rooted in place. She turns to him, her eyes filled with conflict. "Ethan, whatever this is, it's complicated." "I know," he says softly. "I'm not asking for anything, I just needed you to know." Before she can respond, a flash of lightning illuminates the car, and the moment is broken. Claire starts the engine, her hands trembling. "I should go. Let's pause again." At this point, Claire is standing at a crossroads. The temptation is there, but so is the guilt. What would you do in her shoes? Let me know in the comments below. The weeks that follow are a whirlwind of emotions. Claire throws herself into her work, trying to create distance from Ethan, but it only makes her more aware of the void in her marriage. One evening, while folding laundry, she finds an unfamiliar receipt in Daniel's pants pocket. Dinner for two at a high-end restaurant. Her chest tightens. Daniel had told her he was working late that night. Could he be hiding something too? The thought gnaws at her, filling her with a mix of suspicion and doubt. That weekend, Claire decides to confront him over dinner. She casually asks, "So, how's work? Still crazy busy?" Daniel nods, barely looking up from his plate. "Yeah, it's non-stop." "Why?" "Oh, nothing," she replies, her tone deceptively light. "Just wondering how you found time for dinner at Le Rivage last Thursday." Daniel freezes, his fork hovering mid-air. For a split second, guilt flashes across his face before he recovers. It was a work thing, a client meeting. Claire studies him, her gut telling her there's more to the story, but before she can press further, Emily runs into the room, asking for help with her homework. The moment slips away, leaving Claire more unsettled than ever. And there you have it. The plot thickens. What's Daniel hiding, and how long can Claire resist the pull of her growing feelings for Ethan? Stay tuned because things are only getting more intense from here. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of this gripping story. Welcome back. If you've been following Claire's story, you know we're approaching the point where things are about to explode. Buckle up because this section takes us to the heart of the drama. If you're new here, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe so you can catch up on all the twists and turns of this roller coaster. It's a chilly Friday evening, and Claire sits in her car outside a small cafe downtown, her heart pounding in her chest. She's clutching her phone, staring at the screen as messages from Ethan flash across it. They'd agreed to meet for coffee, not an unusual occurrence lately, but tonight feels different. The tension between them has grown too strong to ignore, and Claire knows she's teetering dangerously close to a line she can't uncross. Let's pause for a second. Do you ever feel like you're standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing one more step could change everything? That's where Claire is right now, and honestly it's giving me chills. Inside the cafe, Ethan is already waiting, his expression lighting up as Claire walks through the door. He stands, pulling out a chair for her. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he admits, his voice laced with both relief and uncertainty. Claire forces a smile. "Neither was I." They sit, the air between them thick with unspoken words. At first, their conversation is light, small talk about Jake's soccer games, the upcoming holiday plans, but it doesn't take long for the undercurrent of tension to surface. "Claire," Ethan says softly, leaning forward. "I know I've said this before, but I can't stop thinking about you." Her breath catches, and for a moment she's at a loss for words. Finally, she whispers, "Ethan, it's complicated." "I know," he says, his gaze unwavering. "And I'm not trying to make things harder for you, but I can't pretend this isn't real, can you?" The weight of his words crashes over her. She wants to deny it, to push him away and retreat back into the safety of her predictable life, but the truth is, she can't. She feels it too. Before she can respond, her phone buzzes on the table. It's Daniel. Claire stares at the screen, her mind racing. She excuses herself, stepping outside to take the call. "Hey," she says, trying to steady her voice. "Where are you?" Daniel asks, his tone sharp. "I'm out," Claire replies vaguely, her stomach twisting. "Just running errands." There's a pause, and then Daniel says, "We need to talk when you get home." Oof. That's the kind of line that makes your heart sink, isn't it? You can feel the tension building, and you know something big is coming. Claire returns to the table, her hands trembling. "I have to go," she tells Ethan, grabbing her coat. He looks disappointed but doesn't press her, simply nodding as she rushes out the door. When Claire gets home, Daniel is waiting in the living room, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," he repeats, motioning for her to sit. "What's going on?" she asks, her voice tight. Daniel takes a deep breath. "Claire, I found the texts." Her blood runs cold. "What? What texts?" "Don't play dumb," he snaps, holding up her phone. "I saw them, Ethan, write your friend from soccer practice?" Claire's mind races as she tries to come up with an explanation, but the words won't come. Instead, she says the only thing she can think of. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" Daniel demands, his voice rising, "because from where I'm standing it looks like you've been sneaking around behind my back." "It's not like that," Claire insists, tears welling in her eyes. "Nothing happened." "Not yet, maybe," Daniel retorts, his face contorted with anger. "But don't insult me by pretending there's nothing there. I'm not blind, Claire." Whew, you can feel the emotions boiling over here. This is one of those moments where everything is laid bare, and there's no turning back. The argument escalates, their voices echoing through the house. Claire tries to explain, to defend herself, but Daniel's anger is relentless. Finally, he shouts, "If you're so unhappy, why don't you just leave?" The words hit her like a slap. She stares at him, stunned, as the room falls silent. "Is that what you want?" she whispers. Daniel doesn't answer. Instead, he turns and walks out of the room, leaving Claire alone with her thoughts. The next day, the tension between them is palpable. They barely speak, each retreating into their own corners of the house. For Claire, the guilt is overwhelming. She knows she's made mistakes, but she also knows their marriage hasn't been the same for a long time. That evening, as she's putting Jake to bed, he looks up at her with innocent eyes and asks, "Mom, are you and Dad mad at each other?" Claire's heart breaks. "No, sweetheart," she lies, kissing his forehead. "Everything's fine." But as she closes the door to his room, she knows that's far from the truth. This is where things start to spiral. Claire's world is crumbling around her, and she's forced to confront the choices that led her here. It's messy, it's emotional, and it's all coming to a head. Over the next week, Claire and Daniel's relationship grows increasingly strained. They go through the motions of daily life, but the connection between them feels shattered. Meanwhile, Claire finds herself drawn to Ethan more than ever. He's her escape, her lifeline in a sea of chaos. One evening, as she's sitting alone in the park, her phone buzzes. "Ethan, are you okay?" Claire hesitates before typing back, "No." A few minutes later he replies, "I'm here if you need me." She takes a deep breath, her fingers trembling as she types, "Can we meet?" And just like that, the stage is set for the story's climax. You can feel the tension building, the stakes getting higher with every passing moment. What will Claire choose? Stick around because the next chapter is where it all comes to a head. Welcome back. If you've been following along, you already know that Claire's life is unraveling. Fast, relationships are on the brink, emotions are running high, and we're inching closer to the moment where everything comes crashing down. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to keep up with all the drama. It's about to get intense. It's late on a Saturday night, and Claire finds herself parked outside Ethan's house. She's been sitting there for almost 10 minutes, her hands gripping the steering wheel, as if it's the only thing grounding her. She knows she shouldn't be here. She knows that stepping through that door will change everything. But after the blow-up with Daniel, she feels untethered, like she's been cast adrift and Ethan is the only person who can pull her back. She takes a deep breath, shuts off the engine and walks to the door. Ethan opens it before she can knock, as if he's been waiting. "Claire," he says softly, his voice filled with concern. "Are you okay?" "No," she admits, her eyes welling up with tears. "I don't think I am." Ethan steps aside, letting her in. The house is quiet, the warm glow of a single lamp casting long shadows across the room. He gestures to the couch, and they sit in silence for a moment before she finally breaks down. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore," Claire says, her voice trembling. "My marriage is falling apart, my kids are starting to notice, and I don't know how to fix it." Ethan reaches for her hand, his touch gentle but steady. "You're not alone, Claire. I'm here. Whatever you need, I'm here." All right, let's pause for a second. This is one of those moments where the tension is almost unbearable. You can feel the weight of Claire's emotions, the pull between what she has and what she's searching for. It's heartbreaking, isn't it? As the evening progresses, the line between friendship and something more begins to blur. They talk for hours, sharing their fears and frustrations, their hopes and regrets. Ethan opens up about his divorce, about the loneliness that followed, and how meeting Claire has made him feel alive again. "I don't want to complicate your life," Ethan says, his voice barely above a whisper, "but I can't pretend I don't have feelings for you." Claire's heart pounds in her chest. She knows she should leave, that staying here will only make things worse. But she also knows that walking away means shutting the door on the one person who makes her feel truly seen. Before she can second-guess herself, Ethan leans in, his lips brushing against hers in a kiss that's both tender and electric. For a moment, Claire gives in, letting herself feel the intensity of the connection they share, but as the reality of the situation sets in, she pulls away. "I can't," she says, her voice choked with emotion. "I need time to figure things out." Ethan nods, his expression filled with understanding. "Take all the time you need, I'll be here." The next morning, Claire wakes up to the sound of birds chirping outside her window. The events of the previous night replay in her mind, filling her with a mix of guilt and longing. She knows she's standing at a crossroads, and whatever decision she makes will have far-reaching consequences. At breakfast, the tension between her and Daniel is palpable. He barely acknowledges her as he sips his coffee, his eyes glued to his phone. Claire wants to say something, to address the growing chasm between them, but she doesn't know where to start. And here's the thing, when communication breaks down, it's like a ticking time bomb. You can feel it coming, can't you? The moment where everything finally blows up. That evening, Claire decides to confront Daniel. She finds him in the living room, sorting through paperwork for an upcoming project. "We need to talk," she says, her voice steady despite the nerves churning in her stomach. Daniel looks up, his expression guarded. "About what?" "About us," Claire says. "About what's happening to our marriage." Daniel sighs, leaning back in his chair. "What do you want me to say, Claire? That everything's fine because it's not?" "I know it's not," she replies, her voice rising with frustration. "But we can't keep ignoring it. We've been drifting apart for months, and I don't even know if you care." "Of course I care," Daniel snaps. "But I can't fix everything by myself. You think I don't notice how distant you've been? How you've checked out of this marriage just as much as I have?" The accusation stings, but Claire doesn't back down. "Maybe if you weren't always buried in work, we wouldn't be in this mess." Daniel stands, his voice filled with anger. "Don't put this all on me, Claire. I've been working my ass off to provide for this family while you've been—" He stops himself, but the implication hangs heavy in the air. "While I've been what?" Claire demands, her voice shaking. "While you've been spending all your time with that guy," Daniel finally says, his tone bitter. "Ethan. You... There it is. The bomb has dropped, and there's no going back now. The truth is out, and the stakes have never been higher." Claire feels the blood drain from her face. "This isn't just about Ethan," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is about us, Daniel, about how we've both let things fall apart." Daniel shakes his head, his expression filled with a mix of anger and hurt. "I don't even know who you are anymore, Claire." For the next hour they argue, their voices rising and falling as years of resentment and unspoken feelings come pouring out. By the end of it, they're both exhausted, sitting in silence as the weight of their words settles between them. "I don't know if we can fix this," Claire admits, tears streaming down her face. Daniel looks at her, his own eyes glistening. "Neither do I." And that, my friends, is the breaking point. Everything is laid bare, and the future of their marriage hangs in the balance. What will Claire do next? Stick around because the climax is just around the corner. Hey everyone, if you've been with us through Claire's journey, you know we're at the point where everything is coming to a head. The stakes are sky high, and emotions are running wild. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to join us for the rest of this gripping story, because trust me, you won't want to miss what's next. The fallout from Claire and Daniel's explosive argument lingers in the house like a thick fog. For days, they barely speak to one another, communicating only when absolutely necessary and avoiding eye contact at all costs. The tension is unbearable, and Claire feels like she's walking on eggshells with every step. Meanwhile, Ethan is still in the background, a constant presence in her thoughts, even as she tries to focus on salvaging her marriage. She's torn between two worlds, the life she's built with Daniel and the possibility of something new with Ethan. But as the days pass, the cracks in her marriage only seem to deepen. One night, Daniel comes home late, his tie askew and his expression grim. Claire is sitting on the couch, pretending to read a book, but she can feel the weight of his gaze as he walks past her. For a moment, she thinks he's going to say something, anything, but he disappears into the kitchen without a word. Frustrated, Claire slams the book shut and follows him. "Are we really going to keep doing this?" she demands, her voice sharp. Daniel looks up from the glass of whiskey he's pouring, his expression tired. "Doing what?" "This." Claire gestures wildly, her emotions bubbling to the surface, pretending like everything's fine when it's not. "I can't keep living like this, Daniel." "And what do you want me to do about it, Claire?" he snaps, slamming the glass down on the counter. "You think I don't know things are messed up? You think I don't feel it every single day? Then talk to me," she pleads, her voice cracking. "Tell me what you're feeling, because I can't fix this on my own." Daniel hesitates, the anger in his eyes softening slightly. For a moment it looks like he's about to open up, but then he shakes his head. "I don't know if there's anything left to fix," he says quietly, before walking away. Ouch, that's the kind of moment that hits you right in the gut, isn't it? You can feel the weight of everything Claire and Daniel have been through pressing down on them, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. As the days turn into weeks, Claire begins to feel like she's losing herself. She throws herself into her work, volunteering for extra projects and spending more time at Jake's soccer practices just to avoid going home. Ethan notices the strain she's under and tries to be supportive, but even his presence feels like a double-edged sword. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at work, Claire finds herself at the park near her house. She's sitting on a bench, staring at the empty playground, when Ethan appears. "Hey," he says, his voice gentle. "I thought I might find you here." Claire looks up, surprised but not entirely unhappy to see him. "How did you know?" "Just a hunch," he replies, sitting down beside her. "You've seemed off lately." Claire sighs, leaning back against the bench. "Everything's a mess, Ethan. My marriage, my life. I don't even know who I am anymore." "You're Claire," he says simply. "You're kind and strong and—" "Don't," she interrupts, shaking her head. "Don't make me feel better about this, because I don't deserve it." Ethan is silent for a moment, his expression pensive. "You deserve to be happy, Claire, whatever that looks like." And there it is, the question that's been haunting Claire from the beginning. What does happiness look like for her, and what is she willing to do to find it? That night, Claire returns home to find Daniel sitting at the kitchen table, a stack of papers spread out in front of him. He looks up as she enters, his expression unreadable. "We need to talk," he says, his tone serious. Claire hesitates but eventually sits down across from him. "About what?" Daniel slides a piece of paper across the table. It's a list, her texts with Ethan, her late-night absences, her growing distance from their family. "About this." Claire feels her stomach drop. "You've been keeping track of me?" "Don't turn this around," Daniel says, his voice cold. "I'm not the one sneaking around and lying." "I haven't lied to you," Claire protests. "I've been honest about everything." "Honest?" Daniel scoffs. "You call this honest? You've been emotionally cheating on me for months, Claire. Do you even realize what that's done to me, to us?" The accusation hangs in the air, and for a moment, neither of them speaks. Finally, Claire says, "You're right, I've made mistakes, but so have you, Daniel. This isn't all on me." "Oh, don't even try to compare what I've done to this," he snaps. "I've been working my ass off to support this family while you've been—" "While I've been what?" Claire interrupts, her voice rising. "Looking for the connection you stopped giving me years ago?" Daniel freezes, her words hitting him like a punch to the gut. For the first time, the anger in his eyes is replaced by something else, hurt. "I thought we were stronger than this," he says quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "So did I," Claire admits, tears streaming down her face. "But somewhere along the way, we stopped being a team, we stopped fighting for each other." Wow, this is the kind of raw, emotional confrontation that leaves you speechless. You can feel the weight of everything they've been holding in, and it's absolutely gut-wrenching. The argument ends in silence, both of them retreating to opposite sides of the house. Claire spends the night on the couch, staring at the ceiling, and wondering if their marriage is beyond saving. The next morning, as she's getting ready for work, she notices a note on the kitchen counter. It's from Daniel. "I'm staying at a friend's place for a few days. I need some time to think. Take care of the kids, we'll talk soon." Claire feels a pang of sadness as she reads the note, but also a strange sense of relief. Maybe the time apart will give them both the clarity they need, and just like that, we're on the edge of the climax. Everything Claire's been grappling with, her marriage, her feelings for Ethan, her own identity, is coming to a head. What happens next will change everything. Welcome back, everyone. Claire's story has been a whirlwind of emotions, and now we're entering the most intense part of the journey. This is where everything that's been simmering under the surface finally boils over. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated, because the drama is about to reach its peak. It's been 3 days since Daniel left, and the house feels unbearably quiet. Claire throws herself into taking care of Emily and Jake, masking her inner turmoil with forced smiles and over-the-top enthusiasm. But when the kids are asleep, the weight of everything crashes down on her. She's alone with her thoughts, her regrets, and the painful realization that she might be on the verge of losing everything. Have you ever had those sleepless nights where your mind keeps replaying every decision you've ever made? That's where Claire is right now, and it's brutal. One evening, Claire receives a text from Ethan. "Thinking of you? Are you okay?" She stares at the message for a long time, her heart aching. She wants to reply, to pour out everything she's feeling, but she knows it won't fix anything. Instead, she types back, "I need space." Ethan responds almost immediately, "I understand, take care of yourself." It's a simple message, but it's enough to make Claire break down in tears. She knows Ethan cares about her, but she also knows that continuing to lean on him would only complicate things further. For the first time, she realizes that she needs to figure out who she is, what she wants, on her own. The next day, Claire decides to take a bold step. She calls Daniel. "Hi," she says hesitantly when he picks up. "Hi," he replies, his tone cautious. "Can we talk?" she asks. "Not to argue, but to figure things out." There's a long pause before Daniel answers. "Okay, tomorrow night?" "Tomorrow night," Claire agrees, her stomach churning with nerves. And there it is, the moment of truth. This meeting will determine the future of their marriage, and you can feel the tension building with every second. The following evening, Claire sits in the living room, waiting for Daniel to arrive. She's gone over what she wants to say 100 times, but as the minutes tick by, her confidence wavers. When she hears the sound of his car pulling into the driveway, her heart pounds in her chest. Daniel walks in, looking exhausted but composed. He sits down across from her, and for a moment, they just stare at each other, the silence heavy with unspoken words. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Claire begins, her voice trembling, "about what went wrong." Daniel nods, his expression unreadable. "So have I." Claire takes a deep breath, summoning her courage. "I know I haven't been the wife you deserve, Daniel. I've made mistakes, big ones, But I also feel like we stopped being a team a long time ago, and I don't know how to fix that. Daniel leans back in his chair, his gaze softening slightly. You're right. We did stop being a team, but it wasn't just you, Claire. I checked out too. I buried myself in work, because it was easier than dealing with what was happening between us. Claire feels a flicker of hope at his admission. Do you think we can find our way back to each other? I don't know, Daniel says honestly. But I think we owe it to ourselves and to the kids to try. Wow. That's the kind of raw, honest moment that makes you hold your breath, isn't it? It's not a resolution, but it's a start. The days that follow are filled with tentative steps toward rebuilding their relationship. Claire and Daniel start having real conversations about their fears, their needs, and the ways they've hurt each other. It's not easy, and there are plenty of missteps along the way, but for the first time in years, they're both making an effort. Meanwhile, Claire distances herself from Ethan. She sends him a message thanking him for his support, but explaining that she needs to focus on her marriage. Ethan replies with grace, wishing her all the best and promising to respect her boundaries. It's a painful goodbye, but Claire knows it's the right choice, and just like that, we're seeing a glimmer of hope. But as we know, life has a way of throwing curveballs just when you think things are settling down. One afternoon, while Claire is picking up groceries, she runs into Ethan. It's the first time they've seen each other since their goodbye message, and the encounter is unexpectedly emotional. Claire, Ethan says, his voice filled with a mix of surprise and sadness. How are you? I'm okay, Claire replies, struggling to maintain her composure. How about you? Getting by, he says with a faint smile. I miss you. The words hit Claire like a punch to the gut. She looks away, her eyes welling up with tears. Ethan, You don't have to say anything, he interrupts gently. I just want you to be happy, Claire. That's all I've ever wanted. With that, he walks away, leaving Claire standing in the middle of the store, her emotions in turmoil. Can you feel the heartbreak here? It's like every choice Claire makes comes with its own set of consequences, and there's no easy way out. Back at home, Claire finds Daniel in the kitchen, helping Emily with her homework. The sight fills her with a sense of clarity. For all their struggles, this is her family, her home, and she's determined to fight for it. That night, Claire sits down with Daniel and makes a proposal. Let's go to counseling, she says. I think we need help figuring out how to move forward. Daniel hesitates, but eventually nods. Okay, let's try. And there it is, a turning point. It's not a grand resolution, but it's a step in the right direction. You can't help but root for them, even knowing how messy their journey has been. Over the next few weeks, Claire and Daniel attend counseling sessions, slowly peeling back the layers of hurt and resentment that have built up over the years. It's a painful process, but it also brings moments of hope and connection. They rediscover the things that brought them together in the first place, and while the road ahead is still uncertain, they're both committed to taking it one step at a time. So, what do you think? Can Claire and Daniel rebuild what they've lost, or is their relationship too damaged to save? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe to catch the final chapter of this story. It's one you won't want to miss. Hey everyone, welcome back to the next chapter in Claire's emotional journey. Things are heating up as we approach the story's climax. Will Claire and Daniel finally overcome their struggles, or will the weight of their past mistakes tear them apart? Stick around to find out, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more gripping recaps like this one. It's been a month since Claire and Daniel started attending counseling, and while progress has been slow, there are moments that feel like tiny victories. For the first time in years, they're having honest conversations about their fears, their resentments, and their hopes for the future. But as much as they're trying, the wounds in their relationship still run deep. One evening, after a particularly emotional counseling session, Claire and Daniel find themselves sitting on the back porch, sharing a bottle of wine. The air is cool, and the sound of crickets fills the silence between them. Do you ever think about what life would be like if we hadn't let things get this bad? Claire asks, her voice quiet. Daniel takes a sip of his wine, his gaze fixed on the horizon. All the time, he admits. But what's the point? We can't change the past. No, Claire agrees, but we can decide what we want the future to look like. Daniel turns to her, his expression a mix of hope and skepticism. "Do you really believe that we can fix this?" "I don't know," Claire says honestly, "but I want to try." This is one of those moments where you can feel the characters teetering on the edge of something big. Will they fall back into old patterns, or will they finally start to heal? Just as things seem to be stabilizing, a curveball throws everything into chaos. One afternoon, while Claire is at work, she receives a frantic call from Emily. "Mom, Dad's in the hospital," her daughter cries, her voice shaking. Claire's heart stops. "What happened?" "I don't know. He collapsed at work and someone called an ambulance. We're at Memorial Hospital." Claire rushes out of the school, her mind racing. When she arrives at the hospital, she finds Emily and Jake sitting in the waiting room, their faces pale with fear. She pulls them into a tight hug, trying to calm them even as her own panic threatens to overwhelm her. A doctor approaches, and Claire's stomach churns. "Mrs. Sullivan?" "Yes," Claire says, her voice barely audible. "Your husband had a stress-induced cardiac event," the doctor explains. "He's stable now, but it's a wake-up call. He needs to reduce his stress levels and make some serious lifestyle changes." Relief floods through Claire, but it's quickly replaced by guilt. She knows that the strain on their marriage has contributed to Daniel's stress, and the realization is almost too much to bear. Later that evening, as Claire sits by Daniel's hospital bed, she watches him sleep, his face pale and drawn. For the first time in years, she feels the weight of how much she still loves him, despite everything they've been through. When Daniel wakes up, his eyes meet hers, and for a moment, neither of them speaks. "I'm sorry," Claire whispers, tears streaming down her face. "For everything." Daniel reaches for her hand, his grip weak but steady. "Me too," he says. "I don't want to lose you, Claire. I don't want to lose us." Whew. Talk about an emotional gut punch. This is the kind of moment that reminds you what's really at stake, and it's absolutely heart-wrenching. Over the next few weeks, Daniel focuses on his recovery, and Claire becomes his biggest support system. She takes on more responsibilities at home, helping the kids with their schoolwork and managing the household, while Daniel adjusts to a less demanding work schedule. For the first time in years, they start to feel like a team again, but just as they're beginning to find their footing, the past comes knocking. One afternoon, while Claire is picking up groceries, she spots Ethan in the parking lot. He waves, and she hesitates before walking over. "Hey," Ethan says, his voice warm but cautious. "How's everything going?" Claire forces a smile. "It's better. Daniel's recovering, and we're trying to work things out." Ethan nods, his expression unreadable. "That's good, I'm happy for you." "Thank you," Claire says, her voice faltering. I couldn't have gotten through some of those dark moments without you." Ethan smiles faintly. "You don't owe me anything, Claire. I just want you to be happy." As she walks away, Claire feels a pang of sadness. She knows she's made the right choice, but saying goodbye to Ethan for good feels like closing a chapter of her life she's not quite ready to let go of. And there it is, the bittersweet realization that moving forward means letting go of what could have been. You can feel Claire's heart breaking, even as she tries to do the right thing. Back at home, Claire finds Daniel sitting in the backyard, watching the kids play. She sits down beside him, and they share a comfortable silence. "Thank you," Daniel says suddenly. Claire looks at him surprised. "For what?" "For sticking with me," he says, "for not giving up on us." Claire smiles, her heart swelling with a mix of love and hope. "We're in this together, Daniel, always." And just like that, we're inching closer to the climax. The stakes are higher than ever, but for the first time, there's a glimmer of hope that Claire and Daniel might just make it. What do you think? Can they really overcome everything they've been through? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to stay tuned for the next chapter. Welcome back, everyone. We're nearing the climax of Claire's story, and things are more intense than ever. Relationships are being tested, secrets are surfacing, and every decision counts. Grab some popcorn and get ready, because this chapter is packed with drama. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay tuned for the thrilling conclusion. It's been 2 months since Daniel's health scare, and life in the Sullivan household is starting to feel more stable. Claire and Daniel have been attending counseling regularly, and while there are still moments of tension, there's also a newfound sense of partnership. For the first time in a long time, they're working together to rebuild what they lost. But as we all know, healing is rarely a straight path. One evening, Claire receives a message that shakes her newfound sense of stability. It's from Ethan. "I need to talk to you, it's important." Her first instinct is to ignore it, but something about the urgency in his words makes her pause. Against her better judgment, she replies, "What's going on?" Ethan's response is immediate. "Can we meet? Just one last time, I promise it won't take long." Claire hesitates, her heart pounding. She knows this is a bad idea, but curiosity and a lingering sense of guilt gets the better of her. "Okay," she types, "tomorrow afternoon, the park. All right, let's pause here. You can feel the tension building, right?" Claire is stepping into dangerous territory, and you can't help but wonder what Ethan has to say, and what it might mean for her and Daniel. The next day, Claire arrives at the park, feeling equal parts nervous and apprehensive. Ethan is already there, sitting on a bench under the shade of a large oak tree. He looks up as she approaches, his expression a mix of relief and sadness. "Thanks for coming," he says as she sits down. "What's this about, Ethan?" Claire asks, her voice steady but guarded. Ethan takes a deep breath. "I'm leaving Ashwood Heights. I got a job offer in Chicago, and I'm taking it." Claire feels a pang of surprise, and something else she can't quite name. "Oh wow, that's sudden." "It's been in the works for a while," Ethan admits, "but I didn't want to leave without saying goodbye." Claire nods, unsure of what to say. The silence between them feels heavy, filled with everything they've left unsaid. "I just wanted you to know," Ethan continues, his voice soft, "that meeting you changed my life. You reminded me what it feels like to care about someone, to believe in love again, and for that, I'll always be grateful." Tears sting Claire's eyes as she looks at him. "Ethan, You don't have to say anything," he interrupts gently. "I just needed you to know." Before she can respond, Ethan stands. "Take care of yourself, Claire, and take care of Daniel. He's a lucky man." With that, he walks away, leaving Claire sitting alone on the bench, her emotions a whirlwind of relief, sadness, and closure. Wow. Talk about a bittersweet moment. Ethan's goodbye feels like the end of an era, but also a chance for Claire to fully commit to moving forward. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Back at home, Claire finds Daniel in the kitchen, helping Jake with a science project. The sight fills her with a sense of clarity. For all their struggles, this is her family, her home, and she's determined to fight for it. That evening, after the kids are in bed, Claire sits down with Daniel and tells him about her meeting with Ethan. "I needed closure," she explains, "and now I have it." Daniel listens quietly, his expression thoughtful. "Thank you for telling me," he says. "It means a lot." For the first time in a long time, Claire feels like they're truly on the same page. And just like that, you can feel the pieces starting to fall into place. But as we know, the biggest tests often come when you least expect them. The following weekend, the Sullivans host a small barbecue for friends and neighbours. It's the first time they've had people over in months, and the atmosphere is light and festive. Emily and Jake play with their friends in the backyard, while Claire and Daniel mingle with their guests. Everything seems perfect, until Claire overhears a conversation that sends her heart racing. She's in the kitchen, refilling a tray of snacks, when she hears two women talking on the patio. "Did you hear about Daniel's assistant?" one of them whispers. "Apparently they were awfully close before his health scare." Claire freezes, her mind racing. She hadn't given much thought to Daniel's work relationships, but now a seed of doubt has been planted. Could he have been unfaithful too? Hold up, did you feel that shift? Just when you thought things were smoothing out, the story throws you another curveball. Let's see where this goes. That night, after the guests have left and the kids are asleep, Claire decides to confront Daniel. "Can I ask you something?" she begins, her voice careful. "Of course," Daniel replies, looking up from the dishes he's washing. "Your assistant," Claire says. "Was there ever anything between you two?" Daniel's expression hardens. "Where is this coming from?" "I overheard something at the barbecue," Claire admits. "And I need to know." Daniel sighs, setting down the dish he's holding. "There was nothing romantic between us, Claire, but I won't lie, she was a friend, someone I could talk to when things were rough at home." Claire feels a pang of jealousy, but forces herself to stay calm. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I knew how it would look," Daniel says. and because I didn't want to hurt you." For a moment they're both silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Finally, Claire says, "I need to be able to trust you, Daniel. If we're going to make this work, we have to be honest with each other." "You're right," Daniel says, his voice filled with regret. "I'm sorry." And there it is. The moment of truth. Claire and Daniel are finally confronting their past mistakes, head on, and it's both painful and cathartic. What do you think? Can they truly rebuild their trust? The weeks that follow are filled with hard work and small victories. Claire and Daniel continue their counseling sessions, and their communication improves with each passing day. They start planning a family vacation, a chance to reconnect and create new memories together. As the vacation approaches, Claire reflects on everything they've been through. It hasn't been easy, and there were moments when she thought they'd never make it. But now, as she watches Daniel playing with the kids in the backyard, she feels something she hasn't felt in a long time: hope. And just like that, we're nearing the resolution. Claire and Daniel have come a long way, but there's still one final chapter to unfold. Stay tuned for the conclusion of this powerful story, and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to see how it all ends. Hey everyone! We've finally reached the conclusion of Claire's story, a journey filled with heartbreak, hope and second chances. In this final chapter, we'll see how the conflicts are resolved and what the future holds for Claire, Daniel and their family. Stick around until the end, and don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more stories that tug at your heartstrings. The family vacation is exactly what the Sullivans needed. A week in the mountains, surrounded by fresh air and breathtaking views, gives them the chance to reconnect away from the distractions of everyday life. For the first time in years, Claire feels like she and Daniel are truly on the same team. They hike together, play board games with the kids, and share quiet moments under the stars. One evening, as they sit by the campfire, Daniel reaches for Claire's hand. "I want to thank you," he says, his voice filled with emotion, "for not giving up on me, on us." Claire smiles, her eyes glistening with tears. "We've both made mistakes, Daniel, but I think we've also learned how much we still mean to each other." They sit in silence for a moment, the crackling fire filling the space between them. For the first time in a long time, Claire feels a sense of peace. Isn't it amazing how moments like this can remind you of what's truly important? It's not about perfection, it's about choosing to keep trying, even when it's hard. When they return home, the changes in their relationship become even more evident. Claire and Daniel continue attending counseling, but now their sessions are focused on building a stronger foundation rather than addressing past wounds. They establish new routines: weekly date nights, family dinners without distractions, and regular check-ins to make sure they're staying connected. Claire also takes a closer look at her own life. She realizes that much of her unhappiness stemmed from losing sight of herself. To rediscover her identity, she starts taking art classes, something she'd always wanted to do but never made time for. Daniel supports her wholeheartedly, encouraging her to pursue her passions. Meanwhile, Ethan's absence leaves a noticeable void in Claire's life, but it also serves as a reminder of the choices she's made. While she still thinks of him occasionally, it's with a sense of gratitude rather than longing. He helped her see the cracks in her life, and for that, she's thankful. But she also knows that her path forward lies with Daniel and their family. It's bittersweet, isn't it? Letting go of something or someone you care about, even when you know it's for the best. But that's what growth looks like, learning to move forward without looking back. The final test of their progress comes during an unexpected challenge. Emily, their 12-year-old daughter, begins struggling in school, her grades slipping as she grapples with the lingering effects of the family's turmoil. One evening, after a particularly difficult conversation with her teacher, Claire sits down with Emily in her room. "Is something going on, sweetheart?" Claire asks gently. Emily hesitates, her eyes brimming with tears. "I was scared," she admits. "When Dad went to the hospital, I thought I might lose him, and I thought maybe it was my fault or Jake's fault because we made things harder." Claire pulls Emily into a tight hug, her heart breaking. "Oh, Emily, none of this was your fault, not even a little bit. Your dad and I have had our struggles, but we're working hard to make things better, and we're not going anywhere, I promise." Emily nods, her tears soaking into Claire's shirt. "I just want us to be happy again." "We will be," Claire assures her. "It's going to take time, but we'll get there together. And that right there is the heart of the story. Family. It's messy, it's complicated, but it's worth fighting for. Moments like this remind us why we keep trying, even when it feels impossible. By the time summer rolls around, the Sullivans are in a much better place. Their home feels warm and inviting again, filled with laughter and love. Claire and Daniel still have their moments of tension, but they've learned how to navigate them with honesty and patience, and most importantly, they've shown their kids that it's okay to struggle, as long as you're willing to put in the work to heal. One evening, as they sit around the dinner table, Jake pipes up with a big grin. "This is the best spaghetti ever, Mom." Claire laughs. "It's just store-bought sauce, Jake." "I don't care," Jake declares. "It's still the best." The whole family bursts into laughter, and for a moment, everything feels perfect. Claire looks around the table, her heart swelling with gratitude. They're not perfect, but they're together. And that's enough. In the months that follow, Claire continues her art classes and even displays her work in a local gallery. Daniel cuts back on his work hours, dedicating more time to his family and his own well-being, and while the road ahead is still uncertain, they both feel ready to face it, together. As Claire reflects on everything they've been through, she realizes that the greatest lesson she's learned is the importance of resilience. Life is never easy, and relationships are never simple, but when you're willing to face the hard truths, to admit your mistakes and fight for what matters, there's always a chance for redemption, and that's a wrap. Claire's journey wasn't easy, but it was real. It showed us that love is complicated, forgiveness is powerful, and growth is always possible. What did you think of her story? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.